Welcome back to Action 2 News at 6. An update now on the so-called forever chemicals in our area. The DNR held a PFAS listening session this afternoon in Marinette, sharing the status of PFAS levels.
And according to the latest report, surface and groundwater are still testing positive. Emily Riley has an update on the investigation.
Reverse osmosis or the whole house?
The Wisconsin DNR took questions from several members of the community gathered at Northeast Wisconsin Technical College in Marinette. DNR staff say levels of PFAS contaminants in both surface and groundwater haven't changed significantly since their last report. Alyssa Selwood from the DNR says groundwater is still testing at roughly 11,000 parts per trillion. According to the EPA, the health advisory limit is 0.004 parts per trillion.
And they bounce around, but they're generally around that 10,000 for PFOA. So really not seeing significant changes at this point.
The DNR says it's also finding non-detectable levels of PFAS in the 5 deep private drinking water wells installed by JCI Tyco. However, other naturally occurring contaminants like radium, strontium, and sulfate are still a concern in those deep wells.
But at this point, it kind of matches what we had expected. Non-detect PFAS, but this elevated concentrations of these naturally occurring contaminants that do warrant some treatment.
Some members of the community say they're hoping for additional solutions from the state. Governor Evers' proposal includes over $100 million for communities to address contamination. The state of Wisconsin is also in the process of suing Tyco Fire Products, the plant believed to be responsible for PFAS contamination in Marinette County. A 15-day trial is set to take place in December of 2024. In Marinette, Emily Riley, Action 2 News.